Hello printmaking students, this is Mrs. Gardner, and I'm just going to have a Collagraph print review that kind of shows you the basic parameters of the assignment and the different stages. I know that most of you are in the very, very early stages. Some are actually cutting, some might be thinking of ideas and sketching. This first one is a Collagraph that I don't have a print of, but it shows you the basic plate. I'm going to turn it at an angle and show you some of the thicknesses. We've been printing with different techniques, but this one uses just a variety of creative materials that you can build up and also take down deeper. And then we ink it, and then basically take this plate, and then we will have some moist paper that will pick up on the colors and all the kind of almost like embossing the different layers and depths of the plate and create a print. Before we get further into that though, remember that you have the Collagraph print rubric kind of goals checklist here that you are familiar with. And the base, I won't read through all of it, but the basics is you're going to have a very graphic image that you're going to create using at least a couple pieces that you have cut from mat board, and I'll show you some mat board in a sec. And then you also need to come up with an additional material or medium that could be anything from string to foil to paper clips, anything that has a thinness to it, that it still has some thickness, but by the time you finish, you don't want the plate to be any thicker than about 1/4 of an inch above the matrix, okay, which is the original surface of the print. And then let's see, and we'll make sure that we seal it up before we add any of that colorful ink to it to help the ink release from the plate, but also so it doesn't soak it all up and hurt your plate, because it's just basically pressed paper and objects we want to keep easy to clean and to reuse and print off of. And I'm going to go ahead and show you, this is the back of our rubric where it shows you some sample images I've pulled from different places. And some of these are with, like, here's a piece of kind of a trim, here's some string, here's some paper that had, or like foil would work with this to wrinkle up. And this is actually a plate. These are plates that have been used to create, like here's when it shows a print, okay, but color images on the back. Now the next series I'll show you is more of, it shows you some stages. So this is the eye sample that I've used a lot, and this is the basic sketch. You have to keep it simple, and I know that the sketch is going to kind of transform along the way, because with a lot of printmaking techniques you start out with an idea and then you have to translate or interpret it to create the final look or print, which can be quite different from each other, as you see there. So it's going to change along the way. So you start out with some basic outlines and shapes that you want, and it's pretty open to whatever you want to do. It can even be abstract for this project. Here's the actual plate. Okay, you can tell it's kind of stained with some colors. It's been used quite a few times. And let's see, you may see that little sheen to it, that shine. That's because it was sealed with a marine varnish, although you can use something like this. It's like a gloss varnish that is acrylic gloss medium. That works also to kind of seal in the papery surface, so the ink kind of releases easier and holds up a lot better, because we do rewash these plates and use them. We even take a day to seal the back because that gets wet when you wash it. So, and these are beads. They're actually little glass seed beads that have been glued on. Now you can use whatever glue that you think will hold up. So people use, Elmer's glue. You could use craft glue that's maybe like a tacky glue that's thicker, or you could use hot glue. You could even actually paint or draw with hot glue and create textures themselves, or use it as an adhesive. You can use rubber cement, whatever works, and then we'll varnish it. That helps it stay on also. And then you can see from this plate, Bob already mentioned the matrix of the plate. The matrix of a plate is the original surface that you start out with. Then you often go a bit deeper, like this has been carved out with an X-Acto knife, and then kind of you cut and then you peel it out. So the mat board's really great for that, and that's why we're using it. So you can do that kind of cut and peel, kind of where you go deeper into the matrix, below the matrix. And then you go above it also. So if I turn this, you can kind of see the thickness of other scrap mat board that's been cut and layered on top. And I usually don't go more than just a couple layers beyond the matrix, or it gets too thick to even get through an etching press. It just doesn't quite print as well. That's why you try to stay within a 1/4 inch. And then decisions are made along the way on how you're going to interpret this sketch, to what's going to go deeper, what's going to raise up beyond the original surface, how you're going to make that work. So there's many ways to kind of carry it out, and they do produce different results, whatever decisions you make. Here are 2 final prints. These are, I would say smooth, but they're not really smooth. They're almost like embossed, because when you press wet paper against a textured plate like this, you're going to get this high and low and different levels of real texture. So this is an actual print, but it does have some real texture to it, raised and lowered areas. So it's kind of cool. You can even print like an embossing without any ink at all. Get an interesting kind of result. You can do intaglio style, which would be more this one, where you would ink the plate and then kind of wipe off the surface so the ink is in the deep areas and recessed areas. So when you print, you get this weird kind of negative look. Like normally this pupil sticking out, and you would have paint, ink on it, and then of course the ink stays within these deep areas. But when you're doing intaglio style, when you wipe it off, all of a sudden the color's not there, but it's in the recessed areas down deep. And this is when it's more of a print with whatever's raised out, kind of relief style. Well, actually prints, like you would expect, more of a positive image. So I like them both. They're just extremely different. So there's a lot of versatility with this technique. And this was kind of cool. I'll go back to this in a little bit, because this was like a little mandarin orange that I purposely ate so that I could peel it away and then open up the orange rind and then flatten it, probably with a book, and dry it. It looks like cork, but that's where I got that raised area. And then I put a little hot glue on top, kind of painted with some hot glue to make the little stamens or pistils, I'm not sure which you would call that, right there. These are more mat board cut out and layered on top. And here's where you do that cut and peel technique. Peel it out to make it go deeper. On a different video, I'll show you more of the technique, and then later about printing. Here I'm just showing you, kind of how to start and what you're going to work with and what to expect. This was like some plastic netting that I cut out in a circle and layered on. And then I forget what fuzziness I used for this, but shoot, there's all kinds of things you could choose from for that I just glue on. Anything, like here's foil, crumpled up foil, just to kind of demonstrate different materials you can use for textures. And then here's some, hard to see, but there's some ripples in the water suggested by hot glue, okay, which is a very organic way of working, because it's liquid, you can't really predict what the liquid's going to do. Here are some other materials you're probably collecting at home to bring back. Here's a rubber band that's been snipped apart, so you can use it however you want to. You can, almost like confetti in the background to print. This is just some kind of edging or lacy type fabric. And this is a paper clip, as you see. So real shallow, yet very defined. In fact, there is an example somewhere. Where was that one with the paper clip? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure where it is. But it was just like a bunch of paper clips that were on the surface, and they were easy to tell, really defined. So you'd be surprised what you can use. And of course, foil, you can get that really interesting texture. You can crush it down, and when you print, you'll actually see that texture. And here's some more of the scrap mat board. You can see the students that are cutting from it and layering on top. And here's the 8x10 we're using, okay, of mat board, which is a high quality board you frame with. And it's nice because you can cut with an X-Acto knife, just real shallow, and then peel it out for a deeper layer. And we're using some of these different tools. A rotary tool is good for some curves. I use this for leather a lot, but it makes really good, clean, straight cuts. A little bit of curve, but not the best for curving. And then if you really want some curves, A little bit tricky to kind of get the hang of, but it's a swivel blade. I think it's a little bit hard to control, but some people won't want to get the hang of it. They really like it because it does take a curve. It takes a lot of pressure, though, to kind of get through some of this mat board, but this is the usual tools. It's a plain old number 11 X-Acto knife to get the job done, and of course a cutting surface underneath. So these are the basics for our project, and I will definitely post another video soon that shows you some more techniques. Thanks, guys.